Thank you, everyone, for joining us at the SWK Empower 2021 virtual conference. We're delighted to speak with you all. Today, we're going to be talking about the 5 ways HR and payroll technology can contribute to your bottom line. We are all using some form of HCM technology, often as a requirement, a necessity, and often seen from the HR department as a cost center instead of a value add. But there's a lot more that modern technology can do, and we think that it's something that we should be discussing and sharing with our leadership. My name is Justin Michelson. I am with CS3 Technology, a partner of SWK, and I have with me our HCM expert, among many other titles she has at CS3, Sherry Blejo. Let's talk about HCM and how it affects the bottom line. We'll be touching on 3 main themes throughout these 5 elements. Engagement. This is simply engaging employees into your organization. Engaged employees are 22% more productive. That is a direct boost to any bottom line, and they're less likely to leave an organization, which means lower turnover. And everyone knows there's a lot of costs that are associated with losing any employee. Risk reduction, using your HCM system to its fullest can often result in risk reduction. This means anything from managing required industry licenses and, of course, compliance, tax, and any number of federal requirements that you have to report on that can be pulled and used through your HR data. And on the topic of data, the last thing that we believe is one of the biggest impacts to the bottom line is optimizing your data flow and automating as much as you can. Your employee data is in your HCM, and you can often touch and interact with a lot of other systems. Previously, historically, and just traditionally, you see a lot of manual transactions and time that is taken to do that. We believe that this can be automated, and we see it in modern technology. I introduced Sherry earlier how this is going to work out. I've already talked to her about this at length. So she shared with me a few answers already. So she's given me some visuals to share on each of our 5 topics. Let's go ahead and dive in. We want to talk about some things that impact engagement first. Mobile access might be the simplest, the easiest, the most straightforward. Here you see a group of millennials out on the town looking at a smartphone. And while we may not be able to do this right now, as we're all adjusting to the new normal, if you will, smartphones are integral to how we're interacting, and more professionals coming into organizations are going to be familiar and comfortable using smartphones to do traditional productivity and tasks. This is essential. We have people asking this all the time. Sherry, how does Scissortail handle mobile access?
Before you flip to the next screen, are they smiling or laughing at his pay stub here?
You know, it's hard to imagine, but I'm going to say that they're in a coffee shop with lots of nice coffees. They're probably smiling with him.
Well, if you'll move forward, I did a couple of clips for you all. Mobile access is expected these days, especially with the younger workforce coming into play. But it's important because you've got your boomers and your Gen X's that are still in the workplace, and giving a mobile experience that is comfortable and easily adapted is really important. And Scissortail has done a good job. You can see here on the left, I have a copy of the mobile phone itself, and on the right is the browser version of Scissortail, and I just shrunk it down so that its sizing would be similar. As people are using the web application, the mobile application is identical. And so that transition back and forth, depending on what device you're using, is really comfortable and easy, which means a much higher adoption rate. Then over here, I just did another screenshot that shows the mobile with their pay stubs. I guess that is what they were chuckling about, or maybe they're super excited that he's going to clear $972. The nice thing about this is that, of course, you know, there's no more distribution of pay stubs and paper forms. You can also look at things like your W-2, your last pay stubs. So if they decide that they're going to go out and purchase that new car while he's sitting across the desk in the finance office, he can download those documents, shoot them right over via a message or an email to the finance manager, and never have to interfere with the daily activities of the HR or the payroll department.
We have clients all the time, Sherry, as you well know this, they come to us, they ask us for, looking at new systems and things. And what they often ask for is mobile access because they believe it is a separate module or something like that. How does Scissortail work with adding this to your existing license? Is this something extra?
No, and that was one of the reasons we were so excited when we added Scissortail to our portfolio, because it was designed with collaboration in mind. There are no user license or how many people can get on the system, and they anticipated that everybody should have access to appropriate information in the payroll and the HR system.
Absolutely. Well, and it's one of the things you mentioned it before. This is an expected feature, and it's pretty crazy to see other options out there on the market that have this as an additional license module, even though most employees are looking at this as a given technology when they're coming into an organization.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a super great way to encourage engagement, having them participate with their mobiles. Let's talk about another great thing here, and this is performance management. So traditionally seen as those stressful meetings you have with your management, not a lot of transparency, and you don't really know what's going on, and you're just hoping that it ends well for you. Speaking from past experiences myself with a very large organization, but it doesn't have to be that way. And performance made some changes over the last few years, but it should be a collaborative discussion between levels of management and the employee themselves. What I really want to know from Scissortail's perspective is, how do they handle employee engagement and performance management?
All right, if you'll flip on over, I'll show you a really slick dashboard that's designed specifically for the HR manager. And you used a phrase when we're talking about performance reviews that it should be something that occurs, but this is always a painful process inside any organization. Getting the managers to conduct the review is as much of a struggle as it is for the employee to receive a review, especially if it's one that's critical in nature. And so Scissortail is designed, again, to make it very collaborative so that the HR manager can see, are her frontline managers conducting interviews? Are they on time? Are they consistent across employees? Are they handling them the same way? That allows the HR manager to coach her frontline managers. It also ensures that every employee is being measured consistently and equitably within their job functions or their departments, which is one of those risk reduction things that we talked about.
It's huge, and to have this available and in platform. Sure. And you have them all in system, easy to access, easy to store, and available for historic review, which I think is a big part of this that you don't often see.
Yeah, as a manager myself, being able to look back easily and see how they've progressed, over their quarterly reviews, if you're doing quarterly or annual reviews, is a really good way to give encouragement to those employees that have in fact shown growth in their job positions.
Fantastic. Let's talk about something that's a little less flashy often, but in a lot of ways can be a lot more painful if it's done wrong, and that's compliance reporting. Big old stack of papers here. You've got taxes, you've got EEOC, ACA, workers' comp, multiple taxing authorities. A simple question to ask you that I know opens a lot of doors. How does Scissortail help someone keep track of compliance and out of the hot water that is what happens when you do not stay compliant?
The most important thing is that Scissortail stays up to date with all state and federal mandated changes to all required reporting forms. Anything that's associated with your W-2s, your W-4, I-9, ACA, EEO-1s, you can have complete confidence that whenever the new form is required, the minute that you click on that button, that's the version that's going to appear.
That's fantastic. So I think you actually have a visual that you shared with me that may help list some of that out and give a visual representation of what that looks like.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, here you can see down the side some of the standard reports that we talked about. Didn't mention OSHA, but of course those are in there as well. Use that phrase. Depending on the industry that you're in, you may have other compliance reporting needs beyond this. If you are a union shop, you're going to have another huge group of reporting needs that aren't going to have standard forms, but Scissortail easily can handle all of those kind of compliance reporting needs as well.
Better than the old out in the garage, the clipboard with check marks next to everyone who needs to get that updated.
And the millennials go, clipboard, what is that?
Yeah. Oh, I've seen that icon before on my smartphone. So let's talk about some data automation and what that can look like in the system, because one of the largest untapped wells of potential value impact of the HR teams across an organization is their wealth of data. You have all the employee data, performance. You can see trends, you can calculate things, you can start making predictions and decisions, all of the hot data analysis terms that every executive loves to hear, and even better, loves to see and understand. Traditionally, we have seen HR systems be very data prohibitive. Accessing it's difficult. You have to contact someone in some third tier of support to build a report that is a nightmare. How does Scissortail look different when it comes to how you can build a report or access it?
This is one of my favorite parts of this entire system. So reporting is always a big issue every single time we discuss a new opportunity with a client. They're always frustrated with getting data out. So if you'll flip on over, Justin, I brought a sample here for you of one of the screens within Scissortail. Any screen that you click on in Scissortail is this report style that looks like an Excel spreadsheet. And you can see that everything is in a column and row format. So we all feel really comfortable. That's a place where all HR and payroll people are used to operating. So the transition of what you know in Excel can be easily applied into this tool. And every one of these columns with click, you can drag it, move it around. You can sort it ascending, descending, and you can even add filters here. All of that is done without any programming at all. If you click on the edit, it's going to bring up, if you'll show me just on, it's going to bring up this add remove columns. Scissortail has already anticipated the information that one might need in any given functional area. There are hundreds of data fields that are available on every screen or report. So if you're already looking at the payroll information, it's going to understand that you're going to need time information as well as employee information. So you don't have to worry about joining tables. And that's something that's always been difficult for a typical end user experience.
This is a very powerful and unique reporting system that I've ever seen, especially when it comes to HR and payroll and HCM data.
The other thing that I like about it, those graphs that are showing up down at the bottom, those are driven off of that view that you see at the top. So you can have multiple graphical presentations based on different components in your data view. And you can even share those data views with your coworkers if it's important or something that's appropriate, and have it show up on their dashboard.
Fantastic. I think we always hear that HR should be part of a strategic collaborative discussion with leadership. They need the seat at the table. You hear that a lot. I see this as a really powerful way to illustrate the data, the trends, and provide some strategic insight when you get at that table.
Scissortail tool was written with the end user in mind. They knew that HR and payroll staff members need to get access, and so they did it in a fashion that does have power but doesn't have complexity in it.
Very powerful. So let's go ahead and round it out then with something that is big. A lot of systems talk about it, but I want to see what that actually means. Let's talk about having a single database from hire to retire. A lot of systems were built, as you well know, and others will know, with the term best of breed, which meant that they were looking at the best of each function of HR and payroll. So you had a payroll system that was the best, a timekeeping system that was the best, performance management's outside the system, and you're either trying to find a way to keep all of it together, or in many cases you don't.
We'll just go ahead and flip over to the next screen. It looks like this, and it's so much better. And certainly when we made the decision about adding Scissortail to our portfolio, that was number one on our list, is that we wanted a single database. So Scissortail starts from the very beginning of the process with recruiting, going into this common database. And once you decide that that applicant is in fact someone that you want to offer the job to, you convert their status to an employee, and then the onboarding process starts. There's no moving data from one database to another. It's simply a transition of a status to make them an employee. All that demographic information that they're supplied with their name, address, so forth, is just automatically brought in.
Having a single system, having fewer systems is very valuable. Having only one the value savings alone of not having to manage multiple integrations must be massive.
Exactly. And you can see on the right-hand side here, from that recruiting to onboarding, getting them enrolled. Now they're off to work. They're putting their time in. Let's get them their paychecks cut and get all of those taxes filed. And at the same time, we continue their training, that back and forth interaction on their performance reviews and getting them prepared for the next position. So all of that in one system, which allows that reporting to be easier because we're in that single database. You'll also note down at the bottom, we have compliance, employee self-service, alerts, workflow reports. Those aren't separate modules. They're functionality that is applied to all of the areas that are listed up above. So the appropriate compliance reports, the appropriate employee self-service, all the automated emails and workflow, and of course the reporting is laid on top of each one of these functional areas.
Let's transition over now to Q&A.
And we also have Nathan Triplett from SWK that's going to join us for the Q&A.